Hey guys, I hope you are doing well and your swimming is going great. Also, hope you were able to take advantage of those great Black Friday sales that we had. But don't worry, if you didn't, the products are still there. The sales are gone, but the products are still there. And that's all that really matters because they are freaking awesome products. Those graphic paddles, you're not gonna find those anywhere else. Same thing with the suits. Holiday suits are gone. I'm sorry, you'll have to wait till next year. But hey, go get yourself a little something to tide yourself over between now and then, okay? There it is. That's my plug. Go check it all out, fikeswim.com. I have got my big mid-season meet this weekend, and I am pumped. 100 on Friday. I'm off on Saturday, which is nice, and then 200 on Sunday. And I'm going for those times that I've been talking about, 52 and 155. And I can't even believe I'm saying those numbers. It feels like just yesterday I was talking about going under 55 in the 100 for the first time and not even caring about the 200. Whew, it has been a trip, but this is it. I hit these numbers and I feel like I can be at peace and just satisfied with everything I've accomplished. So no pressure, right? No pressure. Wish me luck. Of course, I will keep you guys posted and let you know how it goes, good, bad, or otherwise. All right. So today, great show for you. I had the opportunity to talk with a guy named Parker Hughes. He is pursuing his master's in exercise science at TCU. And the study that he is doing as part of his degree is, wait for it, power output for swimmers, and looking at the difference between the power put out in a full stroke versus pulling versus kicking to see, how those contribute to the full stroke, looking at fly versus back versus breast versus free, male versus female. Really awesome. And I was so fortunate to be there on the day that he was out at a Coley practice at TFA, where the pros in Coley's group were pulled aside to go through this, to take part in this study, and not just to be there, but I was able to go through the same process. I have to be very clear because this is academia and I can't muddy the waters of what their stated criteria are for their research. I was not part of their study. Age might have been a factor that put me outside of the boundaries of what they were doing, but I did get to go through the same process as those who were in the study, and get my numbers on power output. So really cool stuff. You'll see what I mean. Let's get into it. As the music plays, like and subscribe, please and thank you. Here we go. All right, so my guest today is Parker Hughes. He is at the TCU Kinesiology Department. He is a former swimmer himself at TCU, right?
Yep, my last 3 years of eligibility were at TCU.
Okay, former TCU swimmer. Now pursuing his master's in kinesiology, right? Is that going to be the
Yeah,
exercise science?
exercise physiology and biomechanics.
Okay, but that sounds much more impressive. And he is my guest today because he was or is in the process of doing a study on power and the rate of power development. And he did a study with with multiple teams, including the Texas Ford Aquatics Group, which is not far from me and which my son trains with. And while he was at TFA, I was lucky enough to be able to get him to test me outside of the study, since, as he told me, I'm too old to be part of this group. But he was nice enough to let me use the meter that he had and to see what kind of force that I could put up. And we'll get to that in just a second. So Parker, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about what the study is about?
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a nice intro. So yeah, obviously being a former swimmer myself, I'm very passionate about the sport of swimming, and I know that swimming just as a sport is, I would say, decades behind in the research compared to,
For sure.
track and field, football, basketball, all the land-based sports. Obviously, the biggest reason for that is just it's difficult to waterproof certain equipments, and just the dynamic nature of fluid and swimming makes it really difficult to research. But I wanted to take a stab at it myself and try and not only give meaningful research to the community, but research that can actually be used on a large scale by coaches that you don't need like a computer engineering degree to be able to decode the numbers, that it's pretty straightforward to be able
Right.
to execute and interpret.
Right. And you looked across all four strokes, right?
Yeah, so one of the big glaring holes in the research right now is just that most of it is looking at freestyle males.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously we're missing all the females and then three of the four strokes.
Right.
So trying to extend this, our general population is elite level Division I caliber swimmers. Obviously males and females, all four strokes. So we're trying to tackle the entire breadth of elite swimming. Um, so yeah, trying to be a little bit more comprehensive in what we're looking at.
And understanding the amount of force that different swimmers in different strokes produce, not just for the stroke as a whole, but also pulling versus kicking, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the two kind of working hypotheses we have right now, because obviously nothing's finalized yet, but what we're working on right now is number one, does force produce speed, specifically maximum force producing maximum velocity? Obviously, that's a pretty intuitive relationship, but actually quantifying those numbers is huge for the sport, especially since swimming is so behind in the research. There's still a lot of just ground and pound yardage in the sport. And I think as coaches and swimmers and just the sport in general moves more towards a little bit more specific, dialed in training, people continue to get faster. So I want to continue pushing that boundary and seeing just how impactful maximum force is to velocity. And
Right.
then, like you said, the second hypothesis that we're looking at is what are the upper and lower body differences in force production, not only between the four strokes, but also between sexes. Again, intuitive differences lie between males and females. Females are going to be a little bit more lower body
Right.
driven, just anatomically speaking. Freestyle is probably going to be more upper body driven compared to something like breaststroke, but actually putting numbers to those differences, I think, can be huge, especially on the programming side of things. That if you know kind of male freestylers are kind of fitting this mold, while female breaststrokers are fitting this mold, maybe they need slightly different training, and
Right.
especially at you know Division I level, slight nuances in training like that can be the difference between making NCAA's a nod or making the finals, or
Right.
the Olympic level. There's millions of dollars worth of endorsements on the line, so any little
Right.
change can be hugely beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, in a nutshell, really what we're talking about here is getting away from simply stroking our way through the practices and the races and relying on repetition and just sheer conditioning and habit,
Exactly.
and really getting into how do you maximize your output per stroke,
Yeah.
because when you look at the best in the world, they are very, very good at pulling a ton of water and kicking a ton of water.
Yeah.
And when you compare that to, kids who are coming up in the sport, you see a lot of just stroke, 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 back and forth, stroke, 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 stroke. And there's really no power output. Now, to be fair, a little 10-year-old doesn't have a whole lot of power to put out, but
Yeah.
too often that is allowed to continue for a very long time in a swimmer's career. And so I think this is great. This is also, I don't know if you're familiar with, I'm thinking particularly of Ohio State. So I visited Ohio State, and they are doing some really great data collection on their swimmers. And they can tell you, this is what a female 200 butterflyer who qualified for NCAAs looks like. She can squat this much, she can pull this much, her body fat is this much, and on and
Hmm.
on and on and on, all these metrics. And they can do that at like, okay, this is what a 200 butterflyer who made conference but didn't make NCAAs looks
Hmm.
like, right? And so you start seeing, okay, well, these are the kinds of things I have to do if I want to get to the next level.
Yeah. And I think establishing just general trend lines like that is huge. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be the individual difference,
Right.
which shouldn't be negated. I mean, people are built different for a reason, but I think just knowing the trends is something that can be
Right.
really beneficial, and that's really where I'm trying to add to this. I'm not necessarily trying to say, aerobic training is bad because I mean, NCAA's is, 4.5 day meet, you're racing, 12 times in 3 days or something like that, or conference championships or several days warm up, cool down, like you're doing
Right.
thousands of yards. So you need some sort of aerobic base, but at the end of the day, it's just about who swims the fastest when it really matters. So just trying to pretty much argue that there should be a little bit more emphasis, like you said, on more specific, fast race oriented training.
Right.
Especially, I mean, at the NCAA level, 10 of the 13 races are 2 minutes or less.
Right.
Um, Based on my exercise physiology knowledge that I'm trying to develop right now, um, 2 minutes or less is not very aerobically driven.
Right.
Especially, I mean, 5 of the 13 races are less than 60 seconds or
Right.
less than 50 seconds. If you look at men, I mean, the men's 100
Even
breaststroke is
breaststroke
going to be
now.
50 flat. 50.9 doesn't even make the finals. It's a console now. So it's like, or,
Crazy.
18.9 might not even qualify for NCAAs anymore. Like clearly this is a very anaerobic, forceful event.
Right. Right. So let's talk about what the study actually involved, how you measured all these athletes. And as you do this, you go through the start with the 8-second swim and go through. I'm going to put up video of myself that was
Mhm.
taken. As I said, I was not part of the study, but I still went through the same process as the participants in the study. And so we'll put that up here as we talk, starting with the 8-second swim. Tell us about that first
Yeah.
measurement.
So the 8 second swim, a couple of reasons we chose that. I won't go into the whole nitty gritty details, but essentially it was a 225s from a push, pushing off on the surface and just measuring people from flags to flags. So the middle 15,
Hmm.
that was simply to establish the max velocity that swimmer could achieve in a practice scenario in, practice suit, no tech suits, just to kind of see what the baseline, what is their max force, and then we could go from there.
Because what you found is that peak force is usually achieved at around 8 seconds.
Yeah, so one of the studies we're really basing this off of was actually doing 30-second tethered swims, and they were finding that the peak force was in the 5 to 10 second window, not necessarily the 0 to 5 second window.
Hmm.
Uh, so since most of these 15-yard blasts are anywhere from 7 to 9 seconds, we thought, I mean, that's really splitting the difference in 5 to 10 seconds. So it should be a very accurate representation of someone's peak velocity, especially trying to have this be um, repeatable by other coaches.
Right.
Coaches can time flags to flags whenever they want. You don't need, all you need is a stopwatch. You don't need anything crazy
Right.
or anything super precise. Like you can get a flags to flags whenever you want.
Right. And actually, this gave me an aha moment because when I look at my races, like in 100 breast, that what I seem to notice is that I'm like a freight train where it's almost like I get faster right at about right between like 15 meters and the flags.
Hmm.
And that's not intentional. I'm like, what's going on there? So maybe that's tied to the fact that we hit peak velocity sometime between five or peak force sometime between 5 and 6
Yeah. And
seconds.
that is something that I've started to think about more in kind of doing the initial data analysis and um, probably not within this study, but maybe in future research, trying to look at rate of force development, not necessarily the peak force someone can generate it, but also how quickly then they can get to
Ah,
80% of their peak force or 90% of their peak force.
gotcha.
Um, Seeing if that has any correlation to speed, because like you said, I mean, some people take a little bit longer to get up to speed, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah. Okay. And then from there, from those two 15 or 8 second swims, we went to testing full swim stroke, but tethered, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we were using the Vol Dynamo system um, simply because it syncs via Bluetooth and it's a very intuitive software to use. Like I said, I really want um, this study, once it is published and out to the public, um, that more people can understand it and kind of, I mean, almost use it to continue furthering understanding of the sport. So the fact that it was a Bluetooth system, and you can put athlete profiles in that tracks it for you is awesome. So we had the Vol Dynamo anchored right on pool deck, so it wasn't moving at all. And then on one end there was the bungee cord that the swimmers or the participants were either swimming, pulling, or kicking against, depending on the trial.
Right.
You're
And
good.
for the swim portion, I think I hit like 207 newtons, which I
Hmm.
was pretty proud of. Even though you said maybe it was only for a fraction of a second, but
Yeah.
um, in layman's terms, a newton is equivalent to about a quarter pound of force.
Yeah. So you hitting 207 newtons for your peak force would be roughly 50 pounds of force. But yeah, so we were looking not only at the peak force, but since the unit measures at 100 hertz, it means there's 100 measurements per second.
Oh, okay.
Someone could, hit 207, for example, and it might not be very representative of where they actually are. So what
Right.
we're doing for the participants in the study is within the 8 seconds of their test, we in the computer software, we isolate the highest 3 second average. So whether that's from 5.00 to 8.0 seconds or 3.72 to 6.72, whatever the highest 3 second average is,
Ah,
that's the peak force that we're using
gotcha.
because that'll give a more accurate representation of what
Right.
someone can truly produce, because that should be about 3 stroke cycles.
Okay.
If you're thinking about like a half second per hand hit on freestyle and backstroke, or roughly a second per stroke on breaststroke.
Right. Right. Okay. And then we moved to strictly pulling with a
Yep.
buoy. Again, these were 8 second intervals. So you blew the whistle to go, blow the whistle to stop. Um, and I think I hit like 166 newtons on that. And then kicking with a board.
Hmm.
And I think I was somewhere in the 130s for that. But what's interesting about those numbers, what you were telling me is that in comparison to the people in the study, my pull is actually quite good, but my kick was kind of needing work.
Huh. Yeah, so while we haven't done any true like statistical analysis yet, the general trend right now is like we would expect breaststroke is very leg driven for both males and females. Um, Again, we don't have the uh, super reduced or statistically significant data to produce yet, but the initial kind of eye test is showing that breaststroke is very leg driven. So the fact that you were more upper body driven, um, A, is showing that just individual differences again are here, that you're probably just an upper body driven individual, but it could also be showing that you really might have room for improvement on your legs. And I think that's where I think this study can be really impactful for especially the people that are actually in the study. They can look at their results, obviously later when they're published, and really understand where they are um, excelling and where they can really improve based on the trend lines for their stroke and see, someone faster than me is doing this. Do I need to mimic them a little
Right,
bit more in this area?
right. Yeah. So, as Coach Kim at Metro would say, I'm working on my beach biceps.
Huh.
He gives me shit for that, for being too heavy. Um, but how did you see anything interesting across the strokes, like pulling versus kicking, or female versus female, anything like that?
Um, Again, based on just like the eye tests right now, because we haven't done true analysis, it is nice to see that it looks like there will be differences male to female in backstroke and freestyle, that um, males are likely to be more upper body driven than females. And then, of course, breaststroke in general is going to be more lower body driven than the other strokes. Um,
Now, and
Again,
that's true for male and female for
mhm,
breaststroke, where it's
yeah,
lower body.
yeah. So again, those are kind of eyeballing tests. Um, haven't done true stats on them, but what was also good to see is that force is correlating well to velocity, again, on eyeball test alone. But there is, looks like there's going to be a very strong correlation of max force to max velocity, which obviously is good for um, just moving the sport forward to see that, yes, a more forceful, a stronger athlete is very likely also going to be a faster one.
Right, right. Now, the equipment you were using, you said it was remind me,
The Vol Dynamo.
Vol Dynamo, and that is only $900, right?
Yeah, so I've been told that $900 when it pertains to research equipment is apparently pennies.
Oh, for sure.
Um, to me, as a broke college student, that seems like a lot, but apparently it's not too much. So that's another reason that um, I really like the methods of this study. That, I mean, $900 for any D1 program in the country shouldn't be
Right,
too much. That if they did want to mimic this study, it would be pretty um, feasible.
right. Yeah. Now, for a team on a budget or an individual on a budget, um, is the best way to replicate this kind of study, if you can't get an actual device, to do that 8-second timing, and if so, is from flags to flags rather,
Mhm.
and if so, is there a suggestion as to how often you should repeat that study to try to get a sense of improvement in force?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I think whatever you're trying to study or, look at in your own individual swimming, just having the repeatability of it, I think is probably the most important. That if you're doing, say, something on the power towers, um, saying like, okay, I'm going to go 50 pounds of resistance and I'm going to go the length of the power tower and just measure that every week or twice a week. Because if the resistance doesn't change and you move faster, clearly you're becoming more forceful and a faster athlete. Or you could do the opposite and say, I'm going to swim for 8 seconds, getting to the end of the line and try and move as much weight as possible. Um, I think that'll definitely be up to, individuals and coaches of deciding what is probably more bang for your buck or what you really want to focus more on.
Right.
But I think just honing in on one, I guess, variable at a time, um, could be I guess, a way to do things more a bit on a budget.
Right. And it just occurred to me that I think we should point out it's very important in the study, looking back at the video here, the first two tests with the pushes between flags, the head needed to come up before
Mhm.
the flags, the first set of flags, because
Yeah,
you were trying to take out the wall push from skewing the results.
yeah, definitely taking off the wall push and also probably more so taking off any underwaters.
Right.
Just because if someone's a very good underwater swimmer, and they're going 15 off the wall, then we're not really understanding how fast they can swim. We're just understanding how fast they can do underwaters,
Right.
which is certainly something I want to look at more, but just for the sake of this study and just trying to keep things streamlined, no
Right.
pun intended there. Um, Trying to just focus it on the four main strokes. I do have plans to look at underwaters more in depth in the future, probably more on an more organic sense in research. Because obviously underwaters have truly become the fifth stroke
Right.
in swimming.
Right. And I think the real question that this raises, this study, or any for anybody who is participating in these kinds of studies, is okay. Once I have the data, what do I do with it? And
Mhm.
obviously, that's not within your scope, and you're not like prescribing. Okay, if you have a weaker kick, then do this or whatever. But if somebody can do like you said, which is they've got some type of power tower, they've got some type of resistance that is consistently measurable, and they can time themselves to a point in the pool that is maybe about 8 seconds. Then, or sorry, just a point in the pool, then, and they can time themselves, then they can understand if they're improving, and they can make tweaks. Like if I, for instance, I'm not a bad kicker, but I'm not as good of a kicker. And that could be any number of things, right? It could be my
Mhm.
ankle mobility. It could be the width of my kick, the
Yeah,
what
exactly.
I'm doing in the weight room for squats or whatever. And so I can make adjustments through my training and test those out with my resistance equipment if somebody can time me,
Yeah,
and see if
exactly.
my changes are making a difference.
Yeah, and that is really where I want this to be able to extend to, that once we have kind of these trend lines built out for each stroke and each sex and kind of the upper lower body differences and all those things we're trying to really establish at the elite level. Um, Now on the individual level, someone can say like, okay, well, compared to the trends, I'm lacking in this. Let's work on this for the next 6 weeks and see if I have improved.
Right.
Because obviously, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your speed.
Right.
You can improve your kick, your pull all you want, but unless your speed's improving, then really,
Right.
what's the point? But I think knowing that this is the trend, and if I improve my kick, if you're a weak kicker, your speed should improve as well. And being able to track both of those things, that can be really impactful.
Right.
So I think um, in an ideal world, I would love to see this really done like on almost on a monthly basis for one team and just see because obviously hopefully people are getting faster through the season, so their velocities are going up.
Right.
But do their forces also go up at the same rate, or are the forces going up more or less
Right.
um, over the course of the season? So that's another area that I think that this could extend into the future.
So I think that, the direction you're headed in is what the sport really needs. It needs data. It needs to be able to understand, and this is something that is going to take so much time because the real value in data is seeing the trends. And so you have to repeat studies and come up with new ones. And so, over time, if my rate of force production is increasing in kick, is that truly helping me swim faster based on the times I'm putting up? And or is there some other, because we all know that swimming is kind of a secret. Like it's not, sometimes it just doesn't make sense, right? It's like,
Yeah.
how is this person swimming faster than me? They can't kick as fast as me, they can't pull as fast as me in practice, but they're beating me in races, right?
Hmm.
There's so many X factors in swimming, and we got to start like clawing away at those and revealing more of what happens, what makes for fast swimming.
Yeah. And I kind of had a feeling that in starting this, I would kind of only be taking or placing down one stepping stone, and it would probably open up a lot of other avenues, which is not a bad thing at all because now um, I can see some of the trends that are starting to develop, and each one of those is probably going to need its own dedicated time to really look at and research and
Right.
hopefully do future specific research with teams around the country.
Yeah. And I wish you all the best with that. This was really great. I mean, being able to I'm not going to say take part in this because again, I was separate from it, but to be able to use your device and get the feedback on the numbers and everything. I mean, just for me, it was so enormously helpful. I've got to sit down and figure out, okay, what does this all mean that my kick
Hmm.
isn't where it should be and whatnot. But at least I've got that information and it gives me one more point to work with in
Yeah,
figuring out,
exactly.
next season's recipe. So
Yeah, it's definitely it's hard to get better if you don't know what your weakest link is. And if nothing else, hopefully this study can kind of help people understand where they're really lacking the most and
yeah.
what improvements can give the most bang for their buck.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for doing it. I think, the swimming industry is going to thank this. The sport of swimming is
Hopefully.
going to thank you. And I just appreciate that you let me, join in. So,
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I mean, it was definitely great. I know not to work directly with you, but to work with some of the elite athletes over at Texas Ford um, was awesome, and
yeah.
really hope that this study can really just help the sport.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Best of luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me.